On May 9th, Traoré stood beside Putin at Russia's most powerful military event. But why? He didn't come for peace talks. He came for something far bigger. Something so extraordinary that the West has its eyes on the Traoré and Putin meeting. So, what was he doing there? And what are they planning next? Let's find out. Starting with, why was Traoré standing beside Putin on Victory Day? Because alliances are no longer signed in embassies. They're staged in front of the whole world, under missile-laden skies and the beat of military boots. On May 9, 2025, Ibrahim Traoré didn't just attend a parade in Moscow, he stepped into the heart of a new world order and let everyone know where he stands. Victory Day isn't just another holiday in Russia, it's their most emotionally charged event, a remembrance of resistance, of triumph against global empires, of sacrifice and survival. For Vladimir Putin, the event is sacred political theater. Every detail is symbolic. Every guest is a geopolitical signal. So when Traoré, a man who took power by rejecting French colonial control and kicking out Western troops, was positioned next to Putin in Red Square, it wasn't a coincidence. It was choreography. But what's more important is how Putin treated Traoré.
First of all, I would like to thank you once again for making this decision to participate in the commemorative events to honor the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War. I remember our constructive and useful conversation back in 2023 when you visited our country for the first time to participate in the Russia-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg. This time, your visit to Russia to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the victory is a great symbol, and it reflects the friendly character of relations between Burkina Faso and Russia, and I would like to...
What the world saw was a young African military leader, the face of a rising anti-Western current in Africa, being treated not as a subordinate, but as an equal. The photo ops, the handshakes, the silent acknowledgement on the Kremlin stage, all of it was messaging, not to the Russian public, but to the African continent and the West. Burkina Faso, under Traoré, has become a symbol of resistance. He's shut down French military bases, expelled UN missions, and ended cooperation with Western donors who dictated internal policy. He's implemented land reforms, taken control of mineral resources, and declared sovereignty over national media and banks. But sovereignty needs protection, and that's where Russia enters the picture. By standing with Putin, Traoré wasn't just attending an anniversary. He was positioning himself within a power bloc. Victory Day celebrates Russia's defiance of a Western-led military axis, and now Traoré is making that history his own. For a man leading a military regime surrounded by threats, insurgents from the north, political pressure from ECOWAS, economic strangulation by the West, being seen beside Putin sends a message: I am not alone. And Putin made it very clear that he stands with Traoré and Burkina Faso.
And now we are united by our joint goal to fight against terrorism and extremism, and we will continue to support the Republic and restoring constitutional and lawful order, to fight against unlawful factions that are still operating in some parts of Burkina Faso.
Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Behind the handshakes and commemorations, President Ibrahim Traoré and Putin laid the groundwork for a bold new trade alignment, one that could redefine how Burkina Faso engages with the global economy, and who gets a seat at the negotiation table. While officials admitted that current trade volumes between the two nations remain modest, there was no mistaking the tone of confidence. Growth is happening, and both sides are preparing to scale that growth fast. The Russian side praised the positive trend and expressed a clear objective: to preserve and accelerate the expansion of economic ties, moving beyond symbolism to structured, long-term commercial cooperation. A critical development already underway is the formation of an intergovernmental commission on trade and economic cooperation. While still in its early stages, with a working group now actively exploring its framework, this commission would provide a formal mechanism to coordinate infrastructure projects, mining deals, investment incentives, and trade logistics. It represents a direct pipeline for state-to-state transactions, bypassing the traditional Western-controlled economic institutions that have long dominated African development policy. Traoré's delegation was no passive observer in this process. In 2024, Burkina Faso held the first-ever Economic Days of Burkina Faso in Russia, an unprecedented event led by the Deputy Prime Minister of Burkina Faso. This event wasn't just for ceremonial optics. It was a strategic move to introduce Russian investors and government-backed enterprises to Burkina Faso's newly reclaimed industrial sectors, including mining, agriculture, and light manufacturing. Also, the discussions covered topics ranging from resource access agreements to joint ventures in machinery, fertilizers, and agro-processing, all crucial for Burkina Faso's push to wean itself off foreign food and commodity imports.
In recent years, we have accomplished great progress in mutually beneficial cooperation in various fields. In the end of 2023, after more than 30 years of hiatus, the embassy of Russia in Ouagadougou was turned operational again, and the economic cooperation is also important, even if trade is modest. It's growing, which is a good trend, and we need to preserve it. And we will continue to work together on further strengthening our economic ties and diversify further our trade cooperations. And it was useful to hold Economic Days of Burkina Faso in Russia that were held in 2024. And it was attended by the high-level Burkinabe delegation led by the Prime.
So, Putin responded positively, highlighting their intent to diversify trade relations and increase commercial presence in West Africa, using Burkina Faso as a gateway into the Sahel. Unlike Western investors, who often tie investment to political compliance and IMF benchmarks, Russia's offer is built on non-interference and shared strategic interests, sovereignty for resources, independence for access. But the conversation didn't stop at trade in goods. It was just the beginning. It went to education, which Putin framed not as charity, but as strategic empowerment. He proudly announced that in 2024 and 2025, Russia more than doubled its state-funded scholarships for Burkinabe students, raising the number significantly and allowing 27 new students to be admitted this year alone at Russia's full expense. To date, over 3,500 Burkinabe nationals have already received university-level education in Russia, a pool of future scientists, engineers, and civil servants with deep familiarity with Russian systems, culture, and governance. And that number is set to grow. But this isn't just about degrees. It's about building an elite class of educated Burkinabe youth who can return home with the skills needed to run industries, hospitals, and defense programs. Then came humanitarian support, which Putin addressed with quiet force. In a world where food aid often comes with strings, Russia delivered what many Western nations did not: 25,000 tons of wheat to Burkina Faso, entirely free of charge, in 2024. And this wasn't a one-off gesture. Putin confirmed that another large shipment of essential food supplies was already being prepared for dispatch in May 2025, intended for direct delivery to Ouagadougou. This wasn't aid for votes or debt-trap diplomacy. It was a message. We stand by our friends, especially when they are abandoned by others. On military cooperation, Putin was measured, but his silence was strategic. He didn't announce weapons deals or troop deployments. He didn't need to. The images from Red Square, where Traoré stood watching Russian tanks and modern defense systems parade past, said more than any press release ever could. Putin acknowledged the symbolism of Traoré watching both World War II relics and cutting-edge modern Russian military equipment. The message was clear. You've seen what we have. If you need it, we're here. And Traoré made no secret of it. He wants help, and he wants it fast. He declared openly that Africa's fight against insurgency is the unfinished war of decolonization, and that Burkina Faso cannot win without a strong, technologically capable army. He praised Russia's military resilience under global sanctions, using it as proof that sovereignty is not only possible, but it's survivable. He stated that military cooperation must not only continue, it must evolve, taking on new shapes and forms in response to modern threats. It was a subtle but unmistakable request for weapons, technology transfers, and tactical training. But Putin's offer didn't stop at arms and education. He turned towards something often forgotten in these geopolitical calculations: healthcare. Russia, he said, is fully committed to helping Burkina Faso build scientific and medical infrastructure. He cited the April 2025 visit of Madame Anna Popova, Russia's top health expert, to Ouagadougou, a visit focused on developing research laboratories, enhancing sanitary regulation systems, and training medical and epidemiological personnel. This is part of Russia's broader soft power strategy in Africa, building health systems as a foundation for national strength. Putin views scientific resilience and medical sovereignty as just as vital as tanks or oil. And Traoré echoed the same, stating that Africa cannot be truly independent until it has its own doctors, scientists, labs, and supply chains. He called for technological exchanges, equipment donations, and most importantly, the transfer of Russian expertise directly into Burkina Faso, where it can be adapted and scaled. Whether in agriculture, medicine, industrial machinery, or military logistics, he emphasized the same core principle: Africa needs tools, not talk. We're done waiting. In response, Putin didn't give promises. He gave blueprints. He made clear that Russia will not treat Burkina Faso as a client or a subject, but as a partner in reshaping the global order. From wheat fields to lecture halls, from defense academies to rural clinics, the Russia-Burkina Alliance now has depth, structure, and momentum.
Deputy Prime Minister, and we are working now on establishing intergovernmental commission. We have already established a working group to look into that matter, and we will continue to support your country in training personnel in 2024 and in 2025. The quota of Russian state scholarship for Burkinabe nationals was more than doubled, and this year we are ready to receive 27 more students from your country at the state's expense, and in total, more than 3,500 Burkinabe received higher education in Russia. Cultural and humanitarian ties also play an important part, and it is assisted by the Russian house that is operating in Ouagadougou since 2024. In particular, they are teaching Russian language there. There is a great potential in cooperation in the field of healthcare and sanitary regulations. Recently, on April 24-25, Madame Popova visited Ouagadougou and discussed the development of scientific and research infrastructure and training of personnel. We also prioritize humanitarian support for Burkina Faso. Last year, we allocated 25,000 tons of wheat free of charge, and this month we are going to send a large supply of other food products to Ouagadougou. We appreciate the support from Burkina Faso and many international platforms, including the UN and other multilateral platforms. A useful format of cooperation is the consultations between Russia and Sahel States Confederation.
Now let's talk about the response Traoré gave. Captain Ibrahim Traoré laid down a challenge to the international order. Nothing can stop us. These weren't empty words. They were a direct response to the isolation, pressure, and punishment that Western powers have tried to impose, not just on Russia, but on Burkina Faso as well. And in Traoré's view, it's backfiring. Sanctions, he argued, aren't weakening Russia. They're forging stronger, deeper alliances. And his country, Burkina Faso, is not running from the storm. It's walking directly into it, with Russia at its side. While Western diplomats often use sanctions as a weapon of coercion, Traoré flipped the script. Instead of seeing them as barriers, he described them as catalysts, pushing Russia and Burkina Faso to create alternative systems of cooperation that are stronger, more resilient, and free from old colonial dependencies. Standing next to Russian leaders who've withstood some of the most intense sanctions in modern history, Traoré didn't express sympathy, he expressed admiration. He pointed out that despite being economically targeted by dozens of countries, Russia remains a global force, militarily, diplomatically, and technologically. And that, Traoré said, is proof that resistance works, if it is bold, organized, and rooted in sovereignty. He went further. He called these sanctions an advantage in disguise. How? Because they are forcing both countries to innovate. Instead of importing Western equipment or relying on institutions like the International Monetary Fund, Burkina Faso is now working to build its industries, train its youth, and develop its systems with Russian assistance.
Now, and I would like to thank you once again for this invitation, and this meeting allows us to think about what's happening in the world today and to think about the prospects as well. The obstacles that we can see today must not stop us. These obstacles, in some way, they are even an advantage, because despite all the sanctions that were imposed on the Russian Federation by many states, Russia is still holding the leading position internationally, and we understand this, we understand how difficult it is. And I watched the parade, I watched the soldiers marching in front of us during the parade. I saw the equipment, including the tanks that from the times of World War II, and I saw the modern equipment, and we would like to see the cooperation between our countries developing rapidly, developing swiftly, and acquire new shapes and forms. We thank you for your attitude towards Burkina Faso. Today I visited.
To Traoré, sanctions are not blockades. They're filters, stripping away the illusion of Western goodwill and leaving only the countries willing to collaborate on equal terms. And when Russia stood firm with Burkina Faso, sending food, scholarships, and solidarity instead of conditions, it proved who the real partners were. The alliance between Ouagadougou and Moscow, he argued, is not built on convenience. It's built on shared struggle, shared resistance, shared enemies. Both nations have been painted as threats for choosing their path. Both have had to navigate a global system that rewards obedience and punishes defiance. And both have chosen defiance, but it's not just about resisting the West, it's about building something better. Traoré didn't just want to survive sanctions. He wanted to use them as fuel for transformation. In his words, this pressure should inspire the rise of new industries in Burkina Faso, the expansion of knowledge, the creation of local manufacturing, and the rise of African technological sovereignty, all with Russia's backing. And in this context, his statement, "Nothing can stop us," wasn't a boast. It was a warning. A signal that a new generation of African leadership is not only rejecting Western dominance, but thriving without it. It was also a call to others in the region, Mali, Niger, Guinea, to see that sanctions are not the end of the road. They might be the beginning of real independence. As Traoré left with a clear message, the more pressure they apply, the stronger we become. So one thing is clear, nothing can stop Burkina Faso and Russia's alliance. Do you think Africa has finally risen to stand as an equal on the global stage? Let us know in the comments section. Is this the end of the neo-colonial nightmare? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.